Welcome to Accounting Life with Jotham Tai, a space where we'll talk about anything and everything surrounding the people that grind through your month-end accounting close.
Hi everyone. Today's episode is 2023 Hiring Trends and Compensation for Accounting Professionals. Our guest today is Kristine Aragon, Senior Vice President at Robert Half Management Resources. On this episode, we talk about the state of the accounting and finance job market, important trends in accounting and finance jobs, and the helpful information you can find in the latest edition of the Robert Half Salary Guide. Now, I'll hand it over to our host, Gapify CEO, Jotham Tai.
Hey, Kristine, how's it going? Thanks for joining us on today's episode.
Thank you. I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me, Jotham. I appreciate it.
Well, I am very excited to ask you a bunch of questions. I think a lot of us accountants are hearing the news on what's going on in the market. Of course, a lot of that applies to us as well in our professional careers. So really excited to get your insights about the market, and also want to talk about some of the resources that I know your firm has that will be helpful for fellow accountants as well.
Sounds great.
Well, I'm just going to dive right in. So the $1 million question is, what is the state of the market as it relates to, and of course, our audience is more on the corporate enterprise accounting side. Like, what are you and what's Robert Half and your team seeing in terms of availability of roles in the accounting space? Let's just start with that there.
Great. Well, it's certainly a very interesting marketplace. While there are so many layoffs that are happening, primarily with tech companies and finance companies across the U.S., we are still finding a shortage on talent, specifically accounting and finance professionals. I think the national unemployment rate reported in December for accounting and finance roles professionals is still under 2%, I think 1.6% across the US.
Wow.
So it's still a very in-demand marketplace for accounting and finance professionals. Well,
a couple of things to note. One is this recording is in January. I know the market is moving quickly and dynamically, so I don't know when we'll publish this, but just so it's on record, we are having this discussion in January. And then second of all, actually, I didn't think about this, Kristine, until you just mentioned it, and I didn't even think about this during my prep. But the Wall Street Journal recently published an article about accountants leaving the field, right? So I would imagine that's causing the shortage that you described. And is that correlation? Is that what you guys are seeing on the ground as well?
Yes, I also saw the Wall Street Journal article last month, and the exodus of accounting and auditors leaving the profession. So it certainly is a real thing, but we have so many recruiters across the U.S., and we have an amazing artificial intelligence system, to aid in our recruiting and attracting accounting and finance folks. There are still folks out there that are available and looking for work, and in some cases looking for a new opportunity, or in other cases available for contract opportunities. So we're still finding the supply to meet the demand, sure.
Yeah, and from our standpoint and our perspective and vantage point in the market, Kristine, we're seeing similar things. So we're working with accounting teams to upgrade their automation environments. And when we hear about all the news about the layoffs, it doesn't seem like from an accounting team perspective, the impact is as large. It's usually more on the R&D side, right? So I would imagine the amount of demand for new accounting talent is still high across the board, and at least in our pocket in our part of the world, we're definitely seeing what you described there. Kristine, I want to now kind of look ahead, and to the extent that you're able to also make these correlations, like how do you think about the rest of the year? So this is January 2023, a lot of talk about recession, hard landing, soft landing. My suspicion is it'll be more or less the same, right? Accountants will still be in demand, but course, you and your firm are and your company are the experts in the field. So would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes, yeah. Well, the quit rate continues to be high. It's at 2.7%. Last reported, and I think there are 10.5 million job openings, and there's still a demand, whether it's for contract interim support because clients just need companies need the bandwidth, or or they are experiencing the high quit rate as I described, and so they need again perhaps contract support to kind of backfill and provide the interim support, and or they need support with recruiting to identify the talent. I think it's going to continue to be a strong year. I'm not an economist, but in terms of what we're seeing so far coming into the new year, and the amount of job openings out there, particularly for accounting and finance professionals, I think it's going to be a strong year ahead. But again, I'm not an economist.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think the sentiments that you shared there, I mean, just from a practical accountant's perspective, like many in our audience are, it sounds aligned with the expectations that I think we have. And I think again, kind of relating on the software side in terms of the demand of accounting software, we're not seeing tailwinds from the market impact that. I think there's just so much work in accounting, Kristine, and there's nowhere to hide from it, right? So if you're a public company, you still need to file those 10Qs and 10Ks. We talked about the shortage in the profession, and it doesn't sound like much of that will change, despite what's going on in the market. So I think that's fantastic news for accounting managers, senior accountants, controllers, and Kristine, I definitely want to acknowledge Robert Half too. I know we partner with you guys. We've had our own needs as our company is growing quickly. So you guys have been great partners on that front, and also just before my time at Gapify. So wanted to recognize, because we're now finally meeting and getting a chance to chat. Definitely wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you.
I want to spend a lot of time now, Kristine, on the salary guide, because I have always found that to be a resourceful tool for just knowing where the market is at. So for those who are not familiar with Robert Half's salary guide, what is it, and how is it helpful for our audience specifically, or accounting managers, or maybe hiring managers themselves?
You bet. Thank you, and thank you for your partnership, Jotham. The salary guide has been produced now for about 70 years, and it's great information. Specifically, we have one for accounting and finance roles, and it contains, I think, hundreds of accounting and finance positions and the starting salaries for the role. It has various marketplaces, so you can change the local variance, right, based on the cost of living, whether it's San Francisco, where we are, or New York City, where you are. So it does cover all the various marketplaces, all starting salaries, and there's really great tips and information on just hiring trends that hiring managers will find useful, really useful data.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know being in a position now that requires like scaling quickly and adding headcount quickly, that type of data and tools just helps, at least us from the hiring side, know how to better position our roles to get the best talent possible. And I would imagine on the flip side of that, if you're someone considering a move to a different company, or maybe moving up a management level, if you're an accountant, it sounds like that type of data is available for from that perspective as well. Is that right, Kristine?
There is, yes, there are certain data points and articles in the salary guide that will help those who are considering a move to a different company, and certainly the salary information for the market in which they are considering the move to.
Yeah. So, and I'm assuming with how quickly things are changing, the global pandemic, work from home, there's some maybe themes or trends that people, whether you're on the hiring side or on the looking for a job side, are there any like themes that you're seeing and trends that are important to highlight?
I think right now, just with inflation impacting everything, it's certainly impacting wages. So I think a theme certainly that continues is just workers want higher salaries. They want to be paid competitively. I think this information will be useful for hiring managers in the salary guide, and workers want staff development. They want inclusion. It just goes through the different themes that are important to workers today. Perks, which icing on the cake. A lot of the perks have to do with the flexible remote work, which is still a hot topic for job seekers and for retention. As companies are considering more work in the office versus work remotely. I think really going back to the Wall Street Journal article, Jotham, I think the theme around and the consideration around just retention, right? Where you have an amazing accounting and finance team, just your efforts as an employer to retain those employees will be so crucial. And so there is information around retention. But I think that has to do with the remote work flexibility, the perks, the salaries, as we discussed, development, staff development, inclusion.
Absolutely. And, one trend I'm seeing too, Kristine, that I think is just emerging and starting, and we're not quite doing this at Gapify yet, but some of our peers in the accounting software space are highlighting the consequences of an impact to employee satisfaction if they are not in a place where they can thrive and succeed, i.e. if they're doing spreadsheets all day long. And so, we really just, obviously compensation is important, and we're accountants, so we're numbers oriented. So probably have a spreadsheet comparing, comp with others. But beyond that, it sounds like the emphasis on, the work flexibility, perks, and just, overall satisfaction of the role are critical pieces. And again, this is from one person's perspective. I think that has just changed dramatically in, say, the last 5 years. Is that what Robert Half is seeing as well?
Absolutely. I'm just nodding my head. Yes. And then I think about that article as well that we referred to, where there is a lower number of U.S. students, seeking degrees in accounting. They're just finding that maybe the work, isn't what they thought it was. So they need to know that they've got upskilling. The employers, are looking at those, where they can upskill, but also growth opportunities and, different ways to, the perks, of being an accountant or being an employee at your company, just different ways to focus on retention.
Absolutely. And retention, and I can speak for not only my company, but also peers in, again, my space. Retention, engagement level. Yes. These are now metrics that I'm being asked about by investors, and for good reason, because we cannot drive our initiatives forward without the people there driving them forward. Right? So I think it's just been a pleasant change, and finally, in the 20 years I've been in this space, something that is being taken more seriously, because I have to admit, when I first started in the profession 20 years ago, you were just supposed to go out there, do your work, and maybe you get paid well and your compensation as well, but all these other factors didn't matter as much as they do now. So it's been a really awesome evolution, I think. And I definitely want to go back to the salary guide, Kristine, and just putting on my hiring manager hat. I'm looking to attract, retain talent, and talk about some of the things that we talked about. Like, what are some good nuggets within the salary guide, and maybe tips that can help hiring managers with that?
Well, certainly, I think the biggest component that our hiring managers find in the salary guide that's most useful would be the starting salaries, to ensure that you are being competitive, as you hire new accounting and finance professionals, and then certainly looking at those, when you do your salary audits, your current team members. So the salaries, first and foremost, there are hundreds of various positions in accounting and finance, and there are a couple of different sectors that are broken out as well in the salary guide. And then again, as I mentioned, the tips, a lot of, tips around the retention emphasis and just what workers want, which we spoke about, and then, what it takes to attract new talent as well.
Awesome. Well, I have always found the wealth of information in these salary guides helpful, and I been referring to it for a long time, especially as I was moving up in my own career. Obviously, no longer technically in the accounting profession, although I would say I am even on the innovator side of the profession.
Yeah.
But it has always been helpful. As we wrap up here, Kristine, how can people find this guide, and what would be a good way to access it?
Well, I'm happy to share the information. I can provide my contact details, and anyone that's interested in a salary guide can reach out to me, and I'm happy to provide the information.
Fantastic. Yeah, we'll include a text and link at the bottom. I think those influencers are more fluid in saying that I'm not one of them, but yeah, there's a link. Click the like and subscribe and the link buttons. We'll make sure our marketing team inserts it there. Kristine, this has been such a helpful conversation. I would love to have you back on another episode, maybe a quarter or two down the road, and just see where things are. But certainly from the standpoint of a resource and the salary guide, I think it's a great way for people to get started and make sure that they're calibrating their talent plan according to what's happening in the market. So thank you so much for your time today, Kristine.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Glad to be with you, and I'd come back anytime.
Thanks for stopping by. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you want more information, please check us out at gapify.com, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.